He does not speak, he does not flinch, his cold stare doesn't turn men to stone, but corpses, only to reanimate and transform those corpses into mindless meat soldiers for his army. With hopes of turning Westeros into the first ever medieval necrocracy, the Night King is coming for every living thing in Season 8. And now Slovenian actor Vladimir Verdict, the man who has had the honor of portraying Granddaddy Ice over the past couple of seasons, is giving us a clue into the Night King's true intentions in Season 8. According to Verdict, the Night King is traveling south with a specific target in mind to kill. The purpose of this video is to speculate on who that target may be, and why the Night King wants him or her dead. The only proper way to begin this investigation is by starting with everyone's favorite, or least favorite theory, depending on who you talk to. It's a theory that's been done to death, but hey, resurrection is common in Westeros. Is Bran Stark the Night King? My belief is that Bran Stark is not the Night King, due to the lack of evidence supporting the theory. Many theories in Game of Thrones have been proven true without much evidence to support them. For example, Jon Snow's parentage is barely hinted at in the show, yet R+L=J came true nonetheless. This was a case of the show confirming a theory that was more established in the books. In the case of Bran being the Night King is a character that doesn't even appear in the novels, and the origin of the White Walkers has never been discussed. So Bran being the Night King feels like a dramatic reach. The crux of the theory is that in Season 8, Bran will travel back to the moment in which the Night King was first created by the Children of the Forest. Since Bran cannot speak to the people he visits in the past, he will warg inside the mind of the man who would become the Night King. Bran will then try to convince the Children of the Forest to not go ahead with their plan, warning against the repercussions of creating such deadly creatures. In this moment of time, the Children have been at war with the First Men for hundreds of years. Their lands, their forests, and their people were being slaughtered by mankind. Thus, creating the White Walkers was their only hope for survival. The White Walkers were intended as weapons to be used against the First Men, but instead they created an entity so powerful that it forced the Children and the First Men to become allies. It was a classic bigger Jaws scenario. In Season 6, Episode 5, The Door, Bran discovers that he can warg into the minds of the people that he sees inside of his visions. When the Night King and his army attack the Three-Eyed Raven's cave, Bran has no choice but to warg into the mind of Hodor in the past so that he can control Hodor in the present. Hodor sacrifices his own life, allowing Bran and Meera to escape from the Night King's army. If this theory is true, then Bran Stark was born to one day become the Night King. It would be the second causality loop caused by Bran Stark's meddling. The Night King existed before Bran was born because when Bran was a teenager, he went back in time and warged into the mind of the man who would become the Night King. It's all very straightforward. He would fail in deterring the Children of the Forest against their plan to create the White Walkers, and the magical ritual of sticking a dragonglass dagger into the man's heart would trap Bran's mind inside the Night King forever. It would make sense as to why the Night King would be targeting Bran in Season 8. He wants to end his own suffering and end the causality loop that has trapped his mind inside this demonic form for thousands of years. If he were to kill Bran Stark before Bran went back in time, then Bran would never have been trapped inside the Night King in the first place. So Bran would have to kill his past self in order to kill himself in the present. Once again, it's all very straightforward. Even if all of this is true, the Night King as a character would still exist. The Children had plans to create the White Walkers before Bran went back in time. If the Night King kills Bran, then that just changes the timeline where the Night King is just a regular dude, which is more than likely the timeline the characters are already living in. The Night King was the very first White Walker created by the Children of the Forest. The Children of the Forest and the First Men fought back the White Walkers to the land of always winter, and the White Walkers have been sleeping for thousands of years ever since. Now they have awakened and returned to fulfill their promise: destroy mankind. And anyways, if Bran truly wanted to end his own suffering as the Night King, he could just stick a dragonglass dagger in his eye. So no, I don't think Bran is the Night King. George R.R. Martin is obviously more clever than I am, and so are the showrunners, so maybe they have found a way to make this plot twist work. Maybe it is something that's going to happen in the books, and D&D are just adapting it to television. I just believe it's a bit too convoluted for a 6-episode season. Regardless, the Night King will need to destroy Bran in Season 8 if he plans to win this war. Bran is arguably the most powerful human character in the show. A case could be made for Daenerys, but if Bran has the ability to warg dragons, well then his magic superiority is unquestioned. He's already proven to be the strongest warg in the show. He is the only warg in history to successfully take control of a human mind, that human mind belonging to Hodor, and his green-seeing abilities have given him clear sight over all past events in world history.
To go through all of that and make your way home again only to find such chaos in the world. I can only imagine.
Chaos is a ladder.
With everything that Bran has seen, it's hard to imagine that he hasn't traveled back in time already to try and understand how the Children of the Forest and the First Men beat the White Walkers during the first long night. If he holds the secret to the White Walkers' defeat, the Night King will need to destroy him before he tells Jon and Daenerys, and Bran might try to stop the Children of the Forest from performing this ritual. That would mean the Night King would never exist, and maybe he just enjoys living, so he's going to try and stop Bran from stopping him from becoming a White Walker. Who knows? During the Season 4 finale, Bran and his friends finally make it to the Three-Eyed Raven's cave. Not only is Bran introduced to the Three-Eyed Raven, but also the Children of the Forest, who are long believed to be dead. The Three-Eyed Raven tells Bran that he will never walk again, but that he will fly. Metaphorically speaking, the Three-Eyed Raven could be talking about Bran's potential as a warg, and a greenseer, the potential he possesses in honing his magical abilities, or he could be talking about Bran taking control of a dragon, which is significantly cooler, and let's hope it's that one. In reality, he's probably talking about both. Everyone has assumed for years that Bran would warg into one of Daenerys' dragons. What we didn't know is that one of those dragons would be under the control of the Night King. Like Bran, the Night King is a warg and a greenseer. Not only can the Night King see into the past, present, and future, he can also interact with Bran inside of their visions. Several times the Night King has thwarted Bran spying on him and his army. The first time he reaches out and grabs Bran, which allows him to enter the Three-Eyed Raven's cave, and the second time he scares Bran away. An interesting thing to note about Bran's warging abilities is the feat of warging inside of a human mind. Yes, Bran successfully took control of Hodor's mind, but Hodor's brain was severely damaged when he was a child. Would Bran have the same success taking control over, let's say, Jon's mind, or Sansa's, or Arya's, or any other character that didn't experience the same childhood trauma as Hodor? We haven't yet seen Bran attempt to take over another person's mind that isn't Hodor, so it's unclear if he will be successful in doing so. Success in this matter may implicate whether or not Bran has the power to take control over the mind of a dragon. In Season 6, Tyrion says that dragons are extremely intelligent creatures, and that some maesters believe they are smarter than humans.
Missandei, how many times were you in the company of these dragons?
Many times.
And did they ever harm you?
Never.
Dragons are intelligent. More intelligent than men, according to some maesters.
We've seen time and time again the struggle of Daenerys trying to tame these ferocious beasts. She seems to finally have them under her command, but it wasn't easy. The known extent of dragon intelligence means they can survive without the help of human beings. Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal had no issues feeding and protecting themselves after they reached a certain age, and this is when they grew disobedient. Daenerys got lucky in caging both Rhaegal and Viserion, but for most of Season 5, Drogon was MIA. The biggest dragon only returned to Meereen after his mother's life was in danger. Dragons have proven to be loyal creatures. They never attack their friends, only their enemies, which is a clear mark of superior understanding. Like mentioned previously, Bran has never warged the mind of a human being that wasn't Hodor. Comparatively to a human, warging the mind of a dragon might be nearly impossible. If any living creature could resist the powers of a warg, it would be a dragon. In the books, human beings are more than capable of resisting the mind of a warg. In A Dance with Dragons, Varamir Sixskins, a wildling warg, attempts to transfer his own consciousness into the mind of a woman named Thistle. Varamir is dying and knows that this is his only chance at survival. Thistle reacts madly, clawing out her eyes and biting her tongue when resisting the man's power. Varamir fails to warg the wildling woman, and his own body dies, leaving his consciousness trapped inside the mind of his wolf. Now, try to imagine warging the mind of a conscious dragon. The resistance from the beast might destroy Bran mentally. On the other hand, warging the mind of an undead dragon may be as simple as conjuring a thought. The Night King himself has the ability to resurrect people from the dead and take complete control of their minds and actions. His mind control appears to be second nature, and we can assume he has similar control over Viserion. It appears that controlling corpses is far easier than controlling living beings. Whites aren't fighting for control of their minds because they are mindless. That's what zombies are. And as so many people like to point out, Viserion is not technically an ice dragon, he is a zombie dragon, being controlled by the Night King. Bran, being as powerful as he is, should have no problem controlling Viserion once he gets inside his mind. The only obstacle in his way will be the Night King. I think it would be awesome to see a mental battle between Bran and the Night King played out on some sort of astral plane. Bran has full use of his legs inside of his visions. Maybe he will finally get the chance to be the knight he always dreamed of becoming. Having Bran and the Night King face off one-on-one with swords and weapons would be a cool visual representation for the fight over Viserion's mind, or it could play out differently. There can be an even more clever visual representation of this mental battle between these two powerhouses. Once in control of Viserion, Bran will have several options. He can use Viserion's firepower against the army of the dead. Dragon fire is most likely strong enough to kill White Walkers, and destroying White Walkers from above is probably a lot easier than facing them in single combat. Or he can take the opposite approach. He can destroy Viserion before the Night King has a chance to regain control. Bran very well might get inside the dragon's mind, but how long until the Night King overpowers him and takes back control? Bran's best option is to destroy the zombified dragon as soon as he's given the chance. Dragonglass weapons will be readily available in Season 8, and that includes dragonglass spears. In Season 7, the Lannister army used a ballista, aka Qyburn Scorpion, to fight against Drogon, a weapon that nearly grounded the dragon forever. My prediction is that in Season 8, the Army of the Living will use ballistas equipped with dragonglass spears to take down Viserion. Shooting a moving target that can move at great speeds is obviously difficult. It took Bronn a few attempts before he landed a decent shot on Drogon. If Bran can warg inside the mind of the dragon, it will make Viserion a much easier target to hit. Even if Bran is not the Night King's specific target, he is still the biggest obstacle in the way of achieving his goal. The Night King may have specific deadly intentions for another character other than Bran, but Bran is the metaphorical wall protecting the North. He is the only one who can match the Night King's magic, so removing him from the equation is a must. Jon Snow and the Night King are already pretty familiar with one another from past seasons. In the 2 times they've met, the Night King has made Jon Snow look like an utter fool. Their first meeting came during the massacre at Hardhome, where the Night King displayed his awesome power of resurrection. Their second meeting was in Season 7, during Episode 6, Beyond the Wall. Jon Snow's plan to capture a White and bring it to King's Landing came at a great cost. The Night King baited Daenerys and her dragons north of the Wall by trapping Jon Snow and his men. This allowed Granddaddy Ice to spear Viserion's guts all over the damn place. Viserion was then resurrected by the Night King, who used the dragon's flames to destroy the magical wall that was keeping the walkers from marching south. It seems that these two characters are destined for a third and a fourth and a possibly fifth, sixth, and seventh showdown in Season 8, but maybe it doesn't have to end with their mutual destruction. On this channel, we have speculated several times on the true purpose of the White Walkers, why they are marching south, and what they are trying to achieve. We've also speculated on the role of Jon Snow in the saga's end, and how many fans, and even some characters, believe he is the legendary figure, known to some as the Prince Who Was Promised, and known to others as Azor Ahai.
The Lord let you come back for a reason. Stannis was not the prince who was promised, but someone has to be.
Now, as for Jon's role in Season 8, one character that has not been mentioned in the show is the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. This character was referred to as the Night's King, not to be confused with the Night King, apostrophe S, no apostrophe S. I swear, you mistake the Night's King for the Night King and the comment section becomes the Malice in the Palace of Auburn Hills. The significance of the Night's King in Westerosi lore stems from all the freaky-ass shit he was doing while Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. His seat of power was the Night Fort, a since abandoned castle of the Night's Watch that has been used by Samwell Tarly and Bran Stark to travel north and south through the Wall. The Night Fort is said to contain some dark secrets of the Night's Watch's history. History tells us that the Night's King was a madman who named himself King of the Wall and took a female White Walker to be his bride. Together they ruled over the Wall and made human sacrifices to the White Walkers. All of this is lore, and it's no guarantee that any of this actually happened, but as with most of the telephone history in Game of Thrones, it's usually rooted in a bit of truth. The human sacrifices made by the Night's King sound eerily similar to Craster, the wildling madman who sacrificed all of his male children to the old gods of the forest, aka the White Walkers. This could be history repeating itself. Craster ensured his safety and security by sacrificing his sons, so maybe the Night's King had a similar deal. It was a marriage pact, in which the Night's King would marry a White Walker and in return would sacrifice humans so that the White Walkers could reproduce. There is another theory that the Night's King was a Stark man, and that part of the plan to beat the White Walkers during the First Long Night included marrying this Stark man to a White Walker. The White Walkers weren't annihilated during the First Long Night, that much has been confirmed. They were only pushed back to the land of Always Winter. Maybe the First Men, the Children of the Forest, and the White Walkers came to some sort of land agreement. Everything north of the wall belonged to the walkers, everything south belonged to the first men and the children, and human sacrifices would be made to the walkers to ensure their continuing survival. Like many marriage pacts we've already seen in the show, the marriage between the Night's King and a White Walker would bring a temporary peace between two people, in this case, two different races of people. Obviously, this pact has been broken. Men started settling north of the wall. Those men are now called wildlings. The sacrifices eventually stopped, hence Craster's role in the White Walkers' resurgence, and the White Walkers have returned. And now they're officially south of the wall. Now, fans of the books and the show know that Westerosi lore is a little shaky. We'll never know for sure what really happened during the reign of the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, but present-day Westeros has begun repeating history once believed to be rumor. The return of the Walkers, sacrifices being made, and magic returning to the world. In his interview, Vladimir Furtick said the Night King has a specific target in mind that he plans to kill. In the world of Westeros, being killed can have several different implications. The man who became the Night King was technically killed by the Children of the Forest. He ceased to be a man and became something else. It's been stated multiple times in the books and in the show that resurrection fundamentally changes the person who was brought back. Beric Dondarrion, a man who has been resurrected 7 times, says he loses a part of himself every time he does come back. In the books, Catelyn Stark was resurrected after being dead for 3 days. Her rebirth made her almost subhuman, a zombified serial killer who murders any man or woman associated with House Lannister and House Frey. Benjen Stark was killed by the White Walkers until he was semi-resurrected by the Children of the Forest using the same magic that created the Night King, Dragonglass.
The White Walker stabbed me in the gut with a sword of ice. Left me there to die, to churn. The children found me. To stop the Walkers' magic from taking hold. How? The same way they made the Walkers in the first place. You saw it yourself.
Dragonglass.
Benjen became half human, half white, but he didn't fall under the control of the Night King because the Children of the Forest plunged a Dragonglass dagger in his chest. Jon has already died once in Game of Thrones, and while his short time being dead hasn't really changed him, he could be in for another trip to the darkness. Perhaps the Night King will metaphorically kill Jon Snow by plunging a Dragonglass dagger in his heart, turning him into a White Walker. Then Jon will succeed the Night King as the ruler of the Land of Always Winter. We discussed a similar theory in our video, Will Jon Kill Daenerys in Season 8? The theory is that Jon will have to murder his lover in order to bridge a peace between man and the White Walkers. But this theory kind of flips it on its head. In this scenario, Jon is the one who was killed by Daenerys, and he takes up the role of both the Night King and the new Night's King. Jon's role in the series has been that of a broker of peace. He was the first Lord Commander in history to allow the wildlings south of the Wall, an extremely controversial yet wise decision, a decision that cost him his life. Now in Season 8, he may have to make that decision again, a decision that is sure to be polarizing amongst his people. It would be similar to the role the Night's King played during the first Long Night, a man who was used as a pawn to bridge a peace between two people. And if Jon were to die and be transformed into a White Walker, he would become the new master of the Walkers, taking up the mantle of the Night King, ruling over the White Walkers in the Land of Always Winter, and ensuring the survival of their race. It would make Jon seem like a traitor to his own people. We as the audience would know him as a hero. If Jon did become the new Night King, it would be a tragic yet heroic end for the Targaryen prince. Daenerys and the Night King have only met once in the show, but their meeting ended with Daenerys losing one of her 3 dragons. Like Jon Snow, Daenerys has long been theorized to be the prince, or in this case princess, who was promised. Either that or she is the most badass red herring of all time. Hence why many are hesitant to name her the Chosen One. It seems like an obvious choice, and in Game of Thrones, nothing is ever too obvious. The idea of Jon replacing the Night King as leader of the White Walkers has long been theorized. Additionally, the idea of Daenerys being betrayed for love by Jon is one we've discussed many times, the third and final betrayal that Daenerys was promised in the House of the Undying. This also connects to the legend of Azor Ahai, who forged his legendary sword Lightbringer by plunging the steel into his wife's chest, Nissa Nissa. Azor Ahai and the prince who was promised are referred to interchangeably. Many believe that they were the same figure. Wielding Lightbringer, Azor Ahai was able to fight back the darkness and bring light back into the world. In this scenario, Daenerys wouldn't die, she would only be transformed. Jon would shove the Dragonglass dagger into her heart and she would become a White Walker, essentially the modern-day version of the Night King's queen. This could explain why the Night King would be targeting Daenerys in Season 8. The existence of female White Walkers has not been confirmed in either the show or books, and at this point it's only a rumor that the Night's King had a White Walker bride. As we've seen, White Walkers don't need female counterparts to procreate. The Night King can turn babies into White Walkers simply by touching their cheeks. But what if the Night King dies? How do the White Walkers survive then? Does every White Walker have the power to turn humans into White Walkers? It's unclear. I'm not sure how I would feel about this ending for Daenerys. If the White Walkers can be humanized in some way, it would be heroic for her to figuratively save their race by taking up the role as Night's Queen, but I don't think it will happen. And if I'm wrong, I can only imagine the super babies the Night King and Daenerys could create together. I much prefer the idea of Daenerys having to kill Jon, the betrayal for love being flipped on its head. Instead of Daenerys being betrayed, she is the one who must sacrifice her love for the greater good. She's already done it previously in the form of Khal Drogo. Khal Drogo died so that her dragons could be born, and now Jon may have to die so that the world can survive. If Jon Snow's fate is to become the new Night King, he may be reluctant to take up the mantle. Like the first man to become a White Walker, he may have to be bound, gagged, and forcibly transformed into one of these demonic creatures. Maybe Daenerys is the one who has to make this choice for Jon. In the eyes of her people, she would be known as the woman who murdered the last Stark King, but we as the audience would know she made the right decision. Another interesting idea is the prospect of characters going further north than we've ever seen before. This was promised to happen by George R.R. Martin in his 6th book, The Winds of Winter. Now, in the show, we've gone much farther north than any point of view character in the book has ever traveled. This happened in Season 4, Episode 4, Oathkeeper, in which Craster's last son was transformed into a White Walker. We get a good look at the land of Always Winter and also the Ice Palace, where the White Walkers presumably live. There have been theories that in Season 8, the Night King will return to the land of Always Winter, but not alone. I've stated before that while Season 8 will feature several great battles, the end to the Great War will be a lot smaller and more personal. Like many wars, it will come to an end based on a compromise between a select few people on each side of the war. The land of Always Winter may also be home to some of the secrets concerning the White Walkers, their origins, how they can be defeated, how they survive, how their magic works. And maybe Jon and Daenerys will be traveling past the wall to learn these secrets. Putting aside all these ridiculous theories that I just wasted your time explaining to you, Daenerys will be targeted by the Night King for the same reason that Bran and Jon will be targeted by the Night King, because she's Daenerys. She is immensely powerful, she has incredible magic, she has 2 dragons, she holds a 2-to-1 dragon advantage over Granddaddy Ice, so taking out Drogon and Rhaegal will be a top priority for the Night King. There are a few other characters in mind that have been speculated as targets for the Night King. One would be Cersei Lannister, and the ridiculous idea that the Night King will take Cersei for his bride, making her the Night Queen. I call it ridiculous, meanwhile I just made the same argument for Daenerys. Cersei Lannister is sure making a compelling case as the modern-day Mad King, or in this case, Mad Queen. She has already done what Aerys tried and failed to do, burning her enemies alive by deploying hundreds of caches of wildfire in the Sept of Baelor. She is cunning and ruthless, and this makes her extremely dangerous. But not as dangerous as Granddaddy Ice. We know the Night King and his army will be hitting Winterfell first in Episode 3. In order to prolong the season's drama for 3 more episodes, this battle will most likely end in a decisive victory for the Army of the Dead, leaving the Army of the Living on the run. A theory that surfaced recently is that the Night King may not participate in the battle for Winterfell, and even if he does, his sights will be set further south. The theory is that the Night King will fly his dragon to King's Landing and completely decimate the capital city. Then he will resurrect the Golden Company and use their army to flank Jon and Daenerys from the south. It would put the living in a very precarious situation. 2 front wars are usually not an ideal situation. The Night King's decision to fly south may possibly bolster his forces beyond defeat, but he may have another goal in mind. It may have to do with something Cersei has that the White Walkers desire: a human baby. We know from Season 7 that Cersei is pregnant with Jaime's child, but prophecy tells us that Cersei will only have 3 children. No more, no less. Prophecies in Westeros are always up for interpretation, so maybe this child will cease to be Cersei's child after being stolen by the White Walkers. So technically she only had 3 kids, because her 4th one was stolen. And like Craster's child, it would be a child of incest. I wouldn't put it beyond Cersei to make a deal with the Night King. She's known to choose some questionable characters as allies, but it does seem a bit far-fetched. Fans have also talked about Little Sam being the Night King's target, the only son of Craster's that wasn't turned into a White Walker. I don't really see the significance in kidnapping this child. I understand the White Walkers had a deal with Craster, but the man did deliver on 100 out of 101 sons, so cut him some slack. But now I turn the attention to you guys. Who do you guys think will be the Night King's target in Season 8? Are there any characters that we left out that you think might be specifically targeted? Let us know in the comment section below. And we're closing in on that Season 8 premiere, so we're going to see Granddaddy Ice make his play. I guess I'll just reveal this now. I'm rooting for the Night King in Season 8. Like Nas said in Illmatic, root for the villain. I'm tired of the living. I'm tired of society. Burn it all down. Burn them all! Hey guys, thank you for watching this video, and before we go, I want to quickly thank our Patreon supporters. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to grow and evolve as a channel, so thank you for your generous pledges. If you are interested in supporting our channel through Patreon, visit www.patreon.com/nerdsoup, and you can see the different rewards we offer to our Patreon supporters. T-shirts, mugs, stickers, access to our behind-the-scenes video, and more. Thanks again for watching this video, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Or dislike, don't share, and unsubscribe. It's a binary world, folks.